Do you ever feel like completely disconnected from your inner world? Like there's something inside of you you just cannot access, like you are completely out of touch with your own inner being, and you want to try maybe to connect it, but you cannot really tap into that things that are going on inside of you? So welcome back, my friends. This is Franziska. I was inspired by a friend to do this episode because he was getting back to me on some other episodes I made. And by the way, really big thank you for everybody of you reaching out to me and giving me amazing feedback, constructive feedback. I really appreciate it. So that's also why I recorded this whole episode and I cut it into 3 pieces because it was way too long. And now it consists of 3 pieces, and I will come to that in a second. What are the 3 pieces? But what inspired me was my friend telling me about his struggles to feel in relationships, in conversations, when it's like, you go deeper in this kind of levels of intimacy. And what I understood is that he has struggles in the moment. He gets like a question about his inner world and feelings, and he can somehow not answer the question. He said, I just don't know, I cannot answer the question. And then I have to really think about it and like get into myself, and it takes some time. And usually we don't have that much time, right, in a conversation where you are with another. And then the time passes by, maybe 1 day, maybe 2 days, and then, daily life comes back and you're doing your stuff, you go to work and all this kind of thing. And then the question gets forgotten and maybe was never answered, and you kind of brush it off and you're like, yeah, whatever. And you kind of get on with your daily life. And I really kind of understood the struggle what people have, not being able to tap into their own feeling world. And so in this episode, we want to talk about why is that? We are feeling beings, right? Why do we have struggle to feel ourselves when that is actually a thing every human should be able to do? So this episode, or like the whole series of the 3 parts, first part being the reasons to understand why we cannot feel. The second part is why is it so important that we are feeling? What are the benefits? And then the third part is giving some inspiration and tools so you can tap easier to your inner world. And the whole series is kind of like an homage to my brothers out there, to all my male friends in the world that having struggles to feel, because I think I understand, and I want to support you in that. And in the first episode, we will see why is that. So I wish you a nice time listening, and let's dive in. Reasons to understand why it's so tough, not just for men, to feel, to really feel. And of course, one of the biggest reasons is that society teaches us to suppress or encourages us to suppress. And it's, I think, especially true for men, because it's still this man up thing and this kind of wrong role models that are out there. And for girls, when they are children, it's not as bad when they cry and all this emotion stuff. But for men, it's still kind of the unwanted feminine sides. They don't want to be weak, and you should suppress. You should go on. You should go to work and keep your stuff together and all this kind of thing. So, and what I also see is a lot of toxic masculinity out there. What makes these role models, if you have the wrong role models, how can you be taught to have a healthy connection to your emotions and still live your healthy masculinity if you have all these kind of wrong role models out there? And with wrong role models, I mean, I don't know, like gangster rappers, this kind of stuff. I'm sorry, guys, that's not healthy, you know what I mean? They talk about women in a way that, I mean, I was listening to gangster rap back in the days, and for sure that was not healthy for me as well, because the way they talk about women and the way they talk about things, it dismisses all the sensitivity and all the feeling world. It's just all about strength and usually violence and this kind of stuff. And yeah, this I know so many guys, and especially from the past, that were living in this toxic masculinity of, I don't care about everybody and I don't care about any girls. I just want to, get them laid, and um, uh, getting the sense of masculine power over women. But this stems from a sense of insecurity inside. You compensate, you want to be more powerful because you have this insecurity inside. And even if you're not like that, you're a guy who really wants to feel, but it's not like you get encouraged in the society to do that and to open up. And I can completely understand, because it's also like that for women. Women get also kind of more pushed into the masculine side to kind of keep the emotions down and all these things. So it must be even more harder for the guys. Next point, fear of vulnerability. So this showing emotions that you, I guess, perceive as showing weakness, and losing respect from the outside world, or especially from women. Also, what I think is that maybe some of you have bad experiences when you were sharing your emotions. And when we are kind of not healed inside, it's usually the case that we are not yet in a really healthy relationship. We are together with toxic partners. I have been with so many toxic partners, and when I was sharing my feelings, sometimes they were even kind of laughing or kind of like annoyed by it. So this creates even more this like, okay, I cannot share. Like, seriously, when I'm sharing my true self, I'm getting rejected all the time. But that's not because you're sharing your feelings, that's because you're with the wrong person. So this kind of belief that sharing emotions is kind of wrong, or makes you weak, or kind of creates even more problems, often comes from us being in a not loving relationship, and like being really open to see the other. And this is just possible when you're in a relationship with somebody who has dealt with their stuff. Otherwise, they would reject you as well for it. The whole weakness thing, we have to, I think, kind of redefine what strength means for us, what pure strength is. Emotions and feelings are not weaknesses. We are humans, we have emotions, we have feelings. And I will come to that in the second point, why these are so important, and why we should not suppress and dismiss them. We should kind of rather embrace them and own them, and like really working with them as signals. So I'm coming to that in a second. Next point, of course, which is really big, why so many people have difficulties to not feel, and that was for me as well, is we are dissociated as a coping mechanism. So no, when you experience trauma or like difficult situations, and we have to understand this starts really early in childhood. You learn, imagine you're crying and your father says, stop crying, you have to kind of, come on, let's go, whatever. Imagine the feeling of the child in this moment, like this feeling of shame and guilt, like as if you did something wrong, with having the feeling, and you're a child, you cannot reflect and like, okay, maybe the father was busy, he did not have the nerve to deal with me. You don't see the bigger picture, you don't see the context of the reaction of the adults. All what children are doing is thinking they are wrong and they did something wrong, or they are wrong. So like, guilt is I did something wrong, and shame is I am wrong. And like the many times I heard when I was a child, shame on yourself, go into your room. And when I remember this feeling of, and I just came to this memory during my healing process 10 years ago, I would not have been able to connect to this feeling, because I was still dissociated, this deep feeling of pulling inward and like, and you don't want to, this feeling of you want to open up and you want to scream and shout, and like you fall down and you cry and whatever, and you feel comfortable with what happens. That's kind of gets suppressed. And this is a trauma response. We are trying to avoid pain because these emotions, the primary emotions like anger, sadness, we put shame on it and guilt because we were shamed for it. It's not like we came to the world and like, oh, my sadness is wrong, or my anger is somehow wrong. Somebody told us or implied that it was wrong. So we kind of learned it must be somehow wrong to have strong emotions, and children need to have strong emotions because they need to learn. They express all the emotions, and in the beginning, when the child is a child, the emotions are like, they're crying, they're laughing, like whatever. It goes like, And the good thing would be an adult to tell you, my dear, this is anger. It's gonna pass, it's fine. And then you kind of realize it and you kind of calm down. Also the co-regulation from the adult, which many of us did not experience. We just have been left alone with all our emotions, sent to a quiet room and then deal with it. And a child cannot deal with it. We need the co-regulation, and we need to learn what these emotions are and that they are okay. This is in psychology is like called mirroring. So you kind of feel this stuff and you don't know what it is, and the adult is kind of reflecting back to you a response. And then you learn, okay, this is sadness. It's because my friend didn't play with me in school. I'm sad. That's okay. That's like legit reason. And it's okay. It's going to pass. And so many of us didn't learn that because the adults were not able to connect to their own emotions. And I will come to that really important point a bit later on. So because it's connected to breaking cycles for generations, the parents are not able to connect to their own anger. They dismiss their own anger. They will, of course, reject it in the child as well because it's like too much. Oh my God, all this anger. And they kind of think it's an offense against them, or the sadness. Why is my child sad? It should not be sad, or everything is fine. So when they kind of reject sadness, how should they be able to, when the child is sad, go there and be like really compassionate? Oh, my dear. And, that's impossible. We can't just meet other humans on the level we have healed ourselves. And this is maybe one of the most important points, but I will come to that back later, the breaking cycles for generations. Another issue, I think, what is especially true for men, because they did not really dive into this whole emotional feeling things like women that they talk about and and they read books, and the feeling world is much more like present for the feminine, and that the connection to the feeling world, and we have this like cycles we go through and stuff. For men, it's easier not to be connected to it. And this is also because of a kind of, we did not learn the emotional literacy. So all these words, like all these specific words, nobody taught us. Like what I said before with the parents, that they should have mirrored us and tell us this is grief, this is sadness, this is anger, this is you feel like this because of that, and giving us the context. So we did not really learn about that, and to support with this. And it's really funny because I was on a festival this year working as in psych care as a trip sitter, and we had these workshops about consent and nonviolent communication. And to be honest, nonviolent communication for me, like how to even express it sometimes. Like, for example, you say, I feel rejected. But that's not really a feeling. That's like you imply that the other person rejected you, but that's not really a feeling. And then I was like, yeah, but how could I express that? And there's a list from Hoffman Institute, and they shared it with us at the workshop. And everybody was kind of mind blown that, wow, so many words for feelings nobody had a clue about. And for example, and I will share the list later in the description of the video. So let's say, so first we have body sensations, just the body itself, sensations. And then there are feelings, also a difference. And when we were the whole group were reading through the list, we're like completely mind blown about all these words we could describe our feelings with. So for example, you have feelings of anger. It could be agitated, bitter, edgy, frustrated, furious, grouchy, hostile, moody, on edge, pissed, resentful. If you're feeling, for example, feelings of hope, it's like encouraged, expectant, optimistic, trusting. So all these like nuances of emotions, of feelings we can kind of express, and I will share the list so you can go through and see what words are there with which you can express what you feel inside. And of course, I will come to that in the third point, how to feel it, how to get there, you know what I mean? But this list is really interesting. And the body sensations are like, for example, numb, pain, prickly, pulsing. I feel tense, I feel tender, I feel itchy. And this is really important that we, especially in this nonviolent communication, that we describe how we feel and not something that the other is doing, just what we feel. This is actually the most important point, because then the correlation will come that if the other person's doing that, I'm feeling this way. If you shout to me, I'm feeling tense. I'm feeling like, you know, stiff and like I cannot speak. Instead of saying, I hate it when you shout to me. But yeah, I will make another video about nonviolent communication because it's really eye-opening. How can we express without blaming the other? And this is what we want, right? We want to express ourselves. We want to somehow make ourselves understood, but without creating the defense. And this is what so happens so often, that we try to communicate and the other gets defensive because we are not able to really speak from us. We kind of speaking like the other is somehow wrong. And this creates, of course, resistance. I mean, you know that, right? When your partner comes to you like, you didn't do the dishes and you didn't all da, da, da. It's just you, and you get defensive. You're like, what the hell? So it's really important to learn about these things. And what the last point for reasons to understand is like guys or men, I think, often isolate with their inner world, even though they might feel it or they want to feel it, but they isolate with it because it's not as common between guys to talk about feelings. Even though I know guys, they do it, but I also know from many friends I have, they don't do it. They told me, for example, in conversations we had, oh my God, it's the first time that I ever talked about my feelings. And I'm like, for me, that I really, and I share sometimes too much. I will come to that point as well. For me, it's really interesting to talk about this inner world stuff. That's, you know, and but I understand that if there already is a barrier and you're not doing it and you don't really have the friends to do it, you kind of can trust and you know, okay, I can really open up to this guy, then you kind of stay stuck in your inner world and you kind of rather avoid it, doing it altogether, because it makes you feel, yeah, not able to do something you think you should be able to do. So far, so good, the reasons why we're having a difficult time to connect to our own inner world and to our feelings. The next part will be about why is it so important to be connected to our inner world? What is it telling us? Why is it there? Why do we have an inner world that we kind of are invited to be connected to? What is it telling us? What can we learn from it? What does it help in our life to maybe to grow, to be more the person that we want to be? And this is coming in the second part of the series. And if you like that one, I'm happy if you would like to share with a friend who maybe has a struggle with feeling as well. And if you're interested in the second part, then I wish you a nice time. I'm gonna link the video in the description, so you can kind of go on to the second part, and the third part is gonna be ways to reconnect. So I'm giving some inspiration in some ways that you can reconnect with your inner world. And then I wish you a nice afternoon, a nice day, and I hope I see you in the next video to inspire you about your inner world, my guys. Have a nice day. Namaste.